July the 5th, 2020. Guys, you're looking at satellite images tonight as the sun is setting over the Gulf of Mexico. It is 7:34 p.m. Central Time as I'm speaking now, 8:34 on the East Coast. And if you look very carefully in this section right there, you can see that the center of circulation has spun out from under the top sections of clouds that it was under this morning. Again, let me back that out of the way so you can see it. And it's spinning up towards the Florida Panhandle. Now, what's happening is, if you notice this top layer of clouds that are coming from right to left in this image, or from east to west, has changed. The wind shear was going the other direction. So it's a good thing that it's stripping this storm back. That may keep it from becoming strong enough to do any damage, although we don't know that yet. Even small tropical storms, guys, can throw up water spouts and tornadoes. We've already seen it this year. So pay attention on where this thing is going. But again, as I pause this, as it's getting night, we've got an upper level shear that is now setting up for trouble in the Atlantic. Do you understand what I'm saying? What was happening earlier was that the shear, once they came into the Caribbean, was tearing the top layer off the storms, and you add that with a dust storm, and they're really getting taken down. But we do have a system they're watching that hasn't entered the Caribbean yet. I've been watching it for a couple of days, but because of the sand or the dust cloud that's just above it, I didn't think it was going to do much, but now it is getting the attention of the National Hurricane Center. Again, this is what we're looking at here, and it's went from a 20% chance to a 40% chance of development as we speak. Let's look at the National Hurricane Center statement. Now, this is the chart from the National Hurricane Center. It's the 5-day outlook. What's changed is they've added this storm that they're watching that's, again, has not entered the Caribbean yet. It's a 10% chance of development. And they're saying that some slight development of the system is possible on Monday before environmental conditions become hostile for development on Tuesday. The wave is forecast to move through the Lesser Antilles on Tuesday and could possibly produce locally heavy rain. And we're going to look at images, and there's a dust cloud, directly above it that's going to really put the pressure on it. But again, the winds are changing, and this and you can see it in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, the stuff coming from Africa will not be sheared off backwards. And what we're dealing with here now, it went from a 20 to a 40% chance of formation in 5 days. A small low-pressure system is located over the northern Gulf of Mexico, about 100 miles southwest of Panama City, Florida. Got a lot of friends down there. But notice where this thing is coming in on this projection. Inside these orange lines is not where the storm will travel, but the center of the storm. So it's coming back, guys, all the way into the Pensacola area. Check this out. Fort Walton definitely, as it predicted to make a north turn, loop out, and come in and scrape the coast of Georgia, South and North Carolina. So if you look at the report that's coming out, this is 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which was about 40 minutes ago. A small low-pressure system is located over the northern Gulf of Mexico, about 100 miles southwest of Panama City, Florida. While the low currently has limited thunderstorm activity, we were seeing the tops get stripped back, guys. Some development is still possible before it moves inland early Monday. It's moving fast, notice that. But the system is expected to evolve into a larger low-pressure system and move north, eastward, possibly emerging offshore of the Carolinas later this week, where environmental conditions are expected to be more conducive for development. You're moving into the warmer Gulf Stream and that upper-level wind shear. But notice how it's hugging the coast. And what this orange section is, guys, is not the size of the storm, but somewhere within those two orange lines is where the center will be. So from Panama City, south of there, and if you look at it very close, the line goes between Fort Walton and Pensacola, over into the Perdido area. So keep an eye on that. We'll be watching it, but I want to show you an image of the Saharan dust cloud that may stop this system we're seeing in yellow from developing or becoming stronger. But we're not going to take our eyes off of it just yet. I'm looking at the wide view that comes off the African coast and comes into the U.S., covers the northern tip of South America and the islands. There is a dust cloud. This is the edges of it here now. You'll see the glare of the sun move off. But here's the storm they're looking at. That's a 10% chance. Again, been kind of keeping an eye on it. But because of this dust storm, I didn't think they may even name it. Normally, they would be watching this and it would probably already be developing. But that doesn't mean the ones that are going to follow this off the African coast are going to stay this calm. The reason is, if you get a break, and we saw it last year, 2 storms came off of Africa, just to remind you, and one of them cut a hole through the dust cloud. It sacrificed itself. It fell on the sword. It was absorbed, but it cut a clean hole, and then we had one come in and sit down here and devastate the Bahamas. Y'all remember that? 180-mile-an-hour winds, gusting over 200 miles an hour, just sitting there. And so we're late into the season for much development. That means the heat is building up on the surface of the ocean and on the surface of Africa. You can feel it. Now, again, this storm is going to collide with this dust cloud. Let me play it forward just a little. And watch it as it develops, getting later. Just before the sun goes down, you can see it expanding over. So as the storm moves west and northwest, it very likely could come in contact with that. Now, you've got wind shear. It's still turning. It's turning already in the Gulf of Mexico, again, from east to west. And as that happens, you can see the center of the wind shear that we're dealing with is trying to turn, but it still has a northerly component to it. See right there? And it's being pulled up into this section in between the dust storms. And this dust that you see coming out of Carolina, look at that. It's going all the way, as I show you in the video this morning, up into the UK. So we're going to be dealing with some wind shear that's trying to change, and that's going to be the deciding factor to me on this storm, how far it gets into the Caribbean and is still being numbered and watched. And you've got a lot of dust here. You got some wind shear that's moving north, but it's trying as best it can to try to get into this summer movement where we see the larger hurricanes. Anyways, guys, we're watching it. You watch it, my friends in Florida and the Panhandle. Keep an eye on this thing tonight. And then folks from out in southern Alabama up into Georgia, into the Carolinas, pay very close attention to it. Again, you can have water spouts and tornadoes pop up from these, and a tornado can be as devastating as any hurricane, just much smaller. So heads up, be safe.